So what's the Grape Explorer talking about today? So a very important segment that I really wanted to cover here, especially for me personally, because I was a history major in college. So I wanted to share, this story to talk about, wine and the history of wine. But there was an important person that we want to, give who really came up with a lot of the foundations here. This is called Pliny the Elder. And Pliny the Elder was considered to be the first wine critic. And if you ever notice, there's a lot of wine critics out there in the world, and some people who really know their stuff. This guy actually studied it, and we want to talk about him a little more in depth, because if you really want to read a book, this is called The Story of Wine by Hugh Johnson. I recommend this book to anybody. You can get it on Amazon, and it talks about 6,000 years of history, but it does talk a lot about this gentleman, Pliny the Elder. But we wanted to also spend a little time while we're drinking a nice bottle of Nebbiolo, because I love Italy. I think it's the most fascinating area. There are more grapes in Italy than any other country. But they're indigenous grapes. And there's a reason why they're indigenous, and they don't really leave Italy's because of the soil, because of the microclimate that they're involved in. And a lot of these grapes would not be successful in other parts of the world except for in Italy. And even Pliny the Elder knew that. And we're talking about Pliny the Elder. We would just want to at least zoom in on this gentleman while we talk a little bit about him. Pliny was born in 23 AD and he died in 79 AD. Not much is known about his early life. He served as a naval commander in the Roman army, later became a member of the Roman Senate. He was a renowned scholar, but what he wrote different books on natural history. Book number 14, though, was called The Natural History of Wine, where he talks about the grapevines, where they were cultivated from in Greece, and he talks about cultivation techniques, wine production. This is something that, I really wanted to spend a little time on, but he also talked about something on the variety of grapes. There is no country that has produced such a variety of wines as Italy, each possessing its own distinctive excellence. On the influence of terroir, the same vine will vary in quality according to the nature of the soil and the aspect of the vineyard and the climate of the country. On wine as a remedy, wine taken in moderation sharpens the wit, it warms the veins, it strengthens the stomach, and encourages the appetite. On the healing properties of wine, wine is especially of the best quality and useful for wounds and injuries. By virtue of wine is to bind and close up and to heal. And on wine and health, it is in fact a question that moderate use of wine is beneficial to the health of mankind. This is something that we really wanted to talk about. I know some people might not be involved in history. Unfortunately, being a history major, I was engulfed in it. And going to Europe, this is the reason who I am and why I come and do the things that I do, because I talk about history. But those things that I just mentioned, he's talking about 50 AD. That's exactly talking about wine as a health and as a remedy. And of course, some people might say, well, okay, I get it. That's something that might not interest me. But at the same time, we talk about wine as something 6,000 years, of history, of wine culture. And then we talk about this gentleman who really studied it hard, really wanted to learn. And I'm drinking a glass of Nebbiolo because, yes, Pliny the Elder did walk through the Langway and discuss the soil compositions of the Langway and being one of the best vinicultural areas of all of Italy to produce these type of wines. And so these are the things that I really wanted to spend some time with, because I know that wine sometimes does get a bad rap because, people might think of it, it's alcohol, it's not good for me. Well, I just read that even back in the 50s AD, that he said that wines were just medicinal and people drank wine to cure their ills. But this is all called moderation. And that's the reason why it's very, very important to talk about wine, to educate people a little bit more, because they might not be known, you might not know wine out there. And maybe wine's just not your thing. It's not your bag. But at least the history, you should understand that this was a very important, integral part of history for, again, 6,000 years. But we're talking 2,000 years ago that this guy right here wrote The Virtues of Wine. And we wanted to bring him up because we think that this is a very, very special episode of The Grape Explorer to talk about wine, talk about culture, and talk about history. Again, if you know anything about wine, yes, I am passionate about it. Cheers.